Your legs feel like they're filled with wet sand by 3 in the afternoon. You sit down to take your shoes off and there's a ring around your ankle where the sock was. You press your finger into the top of your foot and the dent stays there for a second before it slowly fills back in. I know that feeling. I lived with it for years and told myself it was just gravity, just getting older, just the price of being on your feet. I'm 83. I've been managing blood sugar for close to 2 decades, and what I'm going to share with you today is something I wish someone had laid out plainly in a doctor's office, instead of leaving me to piece it together from research papers and a lot of trial and error. The heaviness in your legs, the swelling that gets worse as the day goes on, the way your ankles look by evening. That is not just gravity working against you. There is a mechanism behind it, a specific biological process driven by blood sugar. And once you understand it, what I eat every single day starts to make a different kind of sense. I want you to drop your current fasting blood sugar number in the comments right now. Just the number. Because what I'm about to cover lands differently depending on where your glucose has been sitting, and I read every comment on here. Before I get to what I eat, I need to give you the mechanism, because the mechanism is why this works, and without it, you'll hear "eat chocolate" and think I've lost my mind. So stay with me. Your circulatory system is not one big system. It's 2 systems running together. You have your large vessels, your arteries and veins, the ones a cardiologist talks about. And then you have your microvascular system, the network of capillaries and tiny vessels so small they can only be seen under a microscope. In your legs and feet, these microvessels are responsible for something very specific: pushing fluid back up, feeding tissue with oxygen, and keeping pressure balanced so your ankles don't retain water. When blood sugar runs chronically high, your body produces what researchers call advanced glycation end products, AGEs. These are compounds formed when sugar molecules attach to proteins in places they were never supposed to be. And the structures they damage most efficiently are those tiny vessels. Research published in Nature by Dr. Michael Brownlee established this mechanism as the primary driver of vascular complications in diabetes. The walls of your microvasculature become stiff, leaky, and less responsive. Fluid that should be recirculated gets stranded in tissue instead. The result is the swelling you feel, the heaviness, the sock marks, the legs that ache by midday even though you haven't done anything that should make them ache. A 2017 consensus review in diabetes care confirmed that this microvascular deterioration is progressive and tied directly to glucose control over time. Not dramatic events, the slow daily accumulation of a sugar level that stays a little too high for a little too long. And here's the part nobody explains clearly enough. The endothelium, the single cell layer lining every one of those tiny blood vessels, is not just passive plumbing. It actively regulates blood flow. It produces compounds that tell vessels when to dilate and when to constrict. It determines whether your legs get adequate circulation at noon or whether fluid pools in your ankles by 2. When that endothelial layer is damaged by chronic glycation, it loses its ability to respond. It can't dilate when it should. It can't move fluid efficiently. And the heaviness you feel is the downstream consequence of an endothelium that has been under glucose stress for years. That is the mechanism. That is what we're working with. And the food I'm going to tell you about targets that endothelium directly. If your feet burn at night, or go numb, or feel cold no matter how many socks you wear, please don't ignore it. I almost did, and I'm 80 years old. For years I told myself it was just age, the tingling, the heaviness in my legs climbing the stairs. But it wasn't age. It was my blood sugar quietly damaging the nerves and the circulation in my legs, and almost nobody warned me in time. If you let it keep going, those little signals turn into something you can't undo. I wasn't willing to lose my feet or my independence. So I started doing one thing every single day to help support healthy blood sugar and protect my legs. I'll show you exactly what in this video. And if you want the simple support I personally use, there's a free presentation linked in the description below. Dark chocolate, 70% cacao or higher. 1 square, about 1 ounce, every evening after dinner. I know what you're thinking. I had the same reaction when I first read the research, but stay with me. because the mechanism here is real and it's specific. The cacao bean is one of the most concentrated natural sources of a class of compounds called flavonols. Not flavonoids in general, flavonols specifically. Epicatechin and catechin in particular. These compounds have been studied for their direct effect on the vascular endothelium. Research published in the Journal of Nutrition by Grassi and colleagues found that flavonols from cacao were associated with meaningful improvements in flow-mediated dilation, FMD, a clinical measure of how well your blood vessels dilate in response to increased blood flow. Better dilation means better circulation. In the legs, better circulation means less fluid retention, less pooling, less of that concrete heaviness by afternoon. The mechanism is not magic. Flavonols stimulate the production of nitric oxide in the endothelial cells. Nitric oxide is the signal that tells a vessel to relax and widen. It's the same pathway that several blood pressure medications target synthetically. Dark chocolate, the real kind, 70% or higher, not the milk chocolate candy bar, activates that pathway naturally through the food itself. 1 ounce of dark chocolate at 70% or higher also contains approximately 64 milligrams of magnesium, according to USDA data. And magnesium matters separately for this same problem. Research published in the Archives of Biochemistry and Biophysics found that between 25 and 38% of people with type 2 diabetes have measurably low magnesium levels. Magnesium is what the receptor on your cell needs to respond properly to insulin. Without it, insulin shows up, but the door barely opens. Glucose stays in your bloodstream longer. The glycation that damages your vessels keeps running at a higher rate. So the dark chocolate is not just targeting the endothelium through flavonols. It's also restoring part of the mineral that makes insulin work the way it's supposed to. 1 square every evening. After dinner, not before, because the timing matters. Your endothelium does significant repair work overnight. Giving it flavonols and magnesium in the evening means those compounds are available during the hours your body is most focused on vascular maintenance. I want to be direct about something. Talk to your doctor before you add this, especially if you're on blood thinners, blood pressure medication, or managing kidney function. Flavonols affect the vascular system, and that interaction is real. What I'm describing is a support layer, something that works alongside your doctor's plan, not a reason to change anything in your treatment on your own. And I'll say this clearly. Dark chocolate is not a treatment. It is a food with compounds that research associates with vascular support. The distinction matters. What I've built is a system, and the dark chocolate is one piece of it. Here's the rest of the system. Because if you add the chocolate and change nothing else, you are asking one ingredient to carry weight that a whole structure should be carrying. The first piece of the system is a 10-minute walk after dinner. Not a long walk, 10 minutes. The moment you start moving, your muscle cells activate a transporter called GLUT4 that operates completely independently of insulin. It pulls glucose directly out of your bloodstream and into muscle tissue without waiting for your insulin receptors to respond. Research on exercise physiology has consistently shown that even brief movement after a meal significantly reduces the post-dinner glucose peak. That peak is the moment when glycation pressure on your vessels is highest. A 10-minute walk blunts it. Your legs benefit because your endothelium faces less glucose stress during the hours it is trying to repair itself. The second piece is what you eat first at breakfast. Protein before anything starchy. Eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese. Research published in Diabetes Care found that eating protein before carbohydrates at the same meal triggers a hormone called GLP-1 that slows how quickly glucose enters your blood and prompts a gentler insulin response. The same breakfast, the same carbohydrates, eaten in a different order, produces a meaningfully smaller spike. A smaller spike means less daily glycation load. Less glycation load means your vessel walls face less cumulative damage over weeks and months. The heaviness in your legs is partly the product of years of spikes. Reducing each one matters. The third piece is your bedroom at night. A consistent bedtime and a room temperature between 65 and 68 degrees. Research published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that a single night of partial sleep disruption, not chronic deprivation, just one disrupted night, increased insulin resistance across multiple metabolic pathways the following day. Your morning blood sugar reading is partly determined by what your cortisol did at 2 in the morning. A room that is too warm prevents the deep, slow-wave sleep where your body restores insulin sensitivity overnight. A consistent bedtime stabilizes your cortisol rhythm so it doesn't spike early and flood your liver with stored glucose before you've eaten a thing. Your legs in the morning reflect the night you had. This connection is real and almost nobody makes it. Dark chocolate in the evening for the flavonols and the magnesium. A 10-minute walk after dinner for GLUT for glucose clearance. Protein first at breakfast for GLP-1 protection. A cool room and a consistent bedtime for overnight vascular repair. That is the system. Each piece has a mechanism. The mechanisms connect. Dark chocolate is the entry point, but the system is what produces a result you can feel over weeks rather than hoping one food changes everything. A man I heard from last year, 79 years old, retired postal worker, had been diabetic for 11 years, told me his legs had been heavy since his mid-70s. He'd been told it was venous insufficiency, which is partly true for many people, but the glucose connection had never been discussed with him. He built something similar to what I'm describing here, talked to his doctor, kept monitoring his numbers, and wrote to say that by the end of the second month, the afternoon swelling had become noticeably less predictable. Some days it barely showed up. He didn't credit one thing. He said it felt like his body was finally getting what it had been asking for. I can't make a clinical claim from one person's account, but it is the kind of pattern I've heard enough times to take seriously. If you made it this far, you already understand more about your own legs than most people your age ever will. That matters. You know now that the burning, the numbness, the cold feet, they trace back to one thing: blood sugar slowly working against your nerves and circulation. And you know the goal isn't a miracle. It's protecting your ability to stand, to walk, to stay independent. That's why, alongside everything I showed you today, I use a simple daily support to help keep my blood sugar in a healthy range, so my legs keep carrying me where I want to go. I put the free presentation in the description below. Go watch it. And as always, keep working with your doctor. This supports your routine. It doesn't replace it. Before I send you to what's below, I want to say one more thing. Not about chocolate or flavonols or magnesium. Think about the older people you know, the ones who still move through the world on their own terms, who walk into a room without calculating the distance to the nearest chair, who don't spend the second half of every day sitting because their legs gave out. And think about the ones who stopped doing those things, who handed over their independence gradually, one limitation at a time. Most of the time it didn't happen all at once. It happened in the quiet years, when the swelling was written off as gravity, when the heaviness was accepted as the cost of age, when the system that was running low on something real and fixable was never given what it needed. You're still asking questions. You noticed something your body has been trying to tell you. That is not a small thing. That is the exact moment where the trajectory can change. If you want to support your blood sugar and your circulatory health naturally, alongside your doctor, not instead of them, I've put together something at the link below that walks through how to build this support layer day by day, step by step. Tell me in the comments, which leg symptom bothers you most? The heaviness, the swelling, or the cold? Just tell me which one. I want to know what you're dealing with. I'll see you in the next one.